first one in the morning, so thank you for coming. The talk is Aw Ship, Attack Surface of the Maritime Industry. We're going to talk about boats for a little bit. Who am I? My name is Johnny Sonnenschein. I work somewhere, they pay me some money. I don't work in the maritime industry, and I want to stress this point that I don't work in the maritime industry. I've never worked in the maritime industry. I'm not former Navy. I have no connection at all to the maritime industry. This is all stuff that is open and online. Some of it I got from talking to some people that work in the maritime industry, but none of it is NDA, none of it is especially secret. It's all stuff you can find out. So let's start by talking about super basic, how do you get stuff? When you go to the store and you buy something, where does it come from? So the first thing that happens is it comes out of a factory and it gets loaded onto a pallet, and then the pallets get loaded into shipping containers. And the shipping container gets, weighed and inventoried, and a shipping contract signed, and some of that's insurance and so on. So the shipping contract signed with a shipping company, and the shipping container is put onto a truck or a train, brought out to the port. The port checks the manifest, loads it onto the ship that it's supposed to be on, that's going to the right spot, and then it sets sail. And it's sailing for however long it takes. For instance, Shanghai to Oakland is a 21-day travel across the Pacific. The entire time that it's on shipping, it's being tracked by the shipping company. The shipping company makes sure that everything's in order. Then it lands at its destination. So, in this example, we'll talk about Oakland because it's where I'm from. So it comes to Oakland, gets loaded off the ship onto the correct train or truck. And then it gets to your destination, gets to your Walmart or whatever. So that is basically where stuff comes from. Let's go back in time a little bit. Maritime shipping is a fundamental human property. We've always used ships for moving things. It's a lot more efficient than moving it by land. Moving things by land is energy expensive. Some of the earliest writings we have involve navies, the ancient Greeks and what have you. When you ship stuff by land or whatever, your threat model here is highwaymen. It's people robbing your stuff, and it's not really that much different from at sea. We just have pirates as your threat model. So pirates have always kind of been part of shipping, and you just kind of have to deal with them. That's where navies come from. Navies came there to deal with pirates, and the Navy, protects shipping channels in the same way that the Army or police protect land channels. The concern's always been kind of someone stealing your stuff, and the demarcation borders on land are much easier to figure out than on sea, where they're kind of just fuzzy. So we also have navies for national security reasons. So then we started adding computers to them. And why might we care about some of the information threats to boats? Is we have a few different concerns. We have the ecological concern. So running a boat, running an oil tanker aground would be an ecological disaster. Depending on what the cargo is. Anything can be ecologically. We also have the national security concern. So when you're moving all of this trade, when you're moving all this stuff on the trade, it becomes sort of a national security concern. If an individual ship were to get attacked, that becomes a policing issue. If anybody in the room were to go out and swim out and try and steal a boat, the cops or the Coast Guard will come stop you. But if you start to disrupt the shipping industry, that becomes a naval concern. So you can starve a government of resources by disrupting shipping. You can do all manners of things. And the other one is finance. So 90% of the world's trade is by ship. That's $96 trillion annually. Almost everything you get comes by ship. There's that saying, if you got it, a truck brought it. The same is true of ships. If you got something, probably at some point in time it came with a ship. So what are our concerns here? So the ecological concern is literally the plot to the movie Hackers. I don't really know what else to say about that one. Like, the little boat flips over if a hacker were to attack a boat, spill oil everywhere, just to arrest some punk hacker kids. Some of the national security threats. So recently, it was 2004, I believe. There was a bunch of GPS abnormalities around the Black Sea. So 20 ships reported GPS abnormalities, and this is around the Crimea region of Ukraine or Russia, where a bunch of ships suddenly thought that they were at an airport 32 kilometers inland. And all of their AIS data, all of their anti-collision data that they used to coordinate with each other, corroborated this fact. Everybody thought that they were in an airport inland, which, being on the water was definitely not the case. The other one is the recent collisions of. There were four tanker naval ship accidents that happened last year. One of them was the USS John McCain. The other one was the USS Fitzgerald. The John McCain collision left 17 sailors dead or missing at the water, and it was just, a naval ship and a commercial ship collided. And if we want to talk about some of the financial threats for a little bit, so these are some numbers of how much a ship costs. So they're slightly old numbers because the Panama Canal got expanded, but and these are the only ones that I could dig up all the numbers for. So this is for a Panamax ship. So the maximum size ship that could fit through the old Panama Canal standard. So they cost $26.4 million to build. They cost about $5,000 to $7,000 a day to operate, depending on oil prices. And judging based on these particular numbers they hold 5,000 20-foot equivalent unit shipping containers, so 52,000 tons of cargo, a 21-day voyage. It costs about $1,500 to $3,000 for to ship a shipping container. Works out to be about $350,000 to $700,000 a day in revenue to run these ships. So if you could disrupt a ship at sea or anywhere, prevent it from sailing, you're costing the company, $350,000, like top end $700,000 a day, just for one day of it sitting in port rather than doing its job. And they carry millions to billions of dollars worth of cargo, like even just an oil tanker, and like oil is a cheap commodity compared to some of the things that go on ship. An oil tanker carries $35 million worth of oil across wherever it's going. So when you build a ship, they're built more or less to spec. So there's a few things that you need to have to make it seaworthy. And there's a handful of classification societies, is what they're called, who will, take your ship, look at the manifest, do some measurements, and declare that this is in fact seaworthy. And if you want to operate in certain ports and get flagging, you need to have this seaworthiness certificate. So if you build a ship, you talk to a classification society, you take the classification society's report, and you can go get a flag for it. So then you can start operating. The biggest one in America is ABS. And so I looked up what ABS had to say about the future of shipping. So some of the future trends that they state for container ships is energy management, building for current and future service speeds, so like just the speed of movement, environmental regulations. We care more about ecological concerns now than we did in the past, so they want to look at that in the future. Gas as fuel rather than using diesel for whatever reason. And the behavior of the steel structure. So these are the things that they're talking about, is like these are the future trends of container ships. These are the things that future shipbuilders are going to have to focus on. And I want to point out that the one thing that is missing there is anything at all to do with electronic security, cybersecurity, whatever you want to call it. They're not concerned about it at all. So if you're a shipbuilder looking to build like a future-proof boat, what are you going to do? You're going to make it run on gas, make it fuel efficient, use decent steel. You aren't going to care about its cybersecurity, because why would you? These are the people, your customers just want a boat that they can get flagged. This is what they want. So let's talk about some of the systems that we have on board a ship and in the shipping industry in general. So I'm going to start with the harbor. So a harbor it's a big ICS system with some offices on board and so on. So the ICS systems, I mean, it's all SCADA or SCADA. They're fairly standard pieces of equipment that you can use. They're not known for their security. There have been dozens of ICS talks by now. They have ICS villages at almost every con. These ICS systems are vulnerable in ways that other people are more qualified to talk about than I am, but the TLDR of it is that they're not especially secure systems. They also have offices or IT systems, and again, like these are harbors. They're not tech companies. IT and IT security is not their primary concern. It's not their core competency. They also have a number of vessel traffic systems things. So AIS repeaters is one of them. So AIS is an anti-collision radio system that they use. It's a fairly simple protocol. Other things in VTS, radar, what have you. Basically, VTS is like air traffic control, but for boats. It's used for tight waters, such as around a harbor. All boats have navigation systems, the most primitive of which is ELRAN, and ELRAN is just it's a radio triangulation protocol. All these boats have chart data that they download, so just arbitrary blobs of data that they'll run. They all use GPS and friends for modern navigation. GNSS is the broad term for it. It includes like the European standard and the Russian standard. And LRIT is a long-range vessel tracking system that was added after September 11th to track vessels, make sure that they're going where they're supposed to be, they don't get diverted, terrorists haven't taken them over, what have you. And they all use satellite communication. So, if you need to call the captain on a ship, the only way they can really get a hold of you is satellite communications. And the satellite communications are, again, they're particularly vulnerable systems. So I want to point out a couple CVEs that I dug up on one of the satellite communication systems for the pilot below deck equipment for the Iridium terminals. So the first one is CVE 2014-0326. So the pilot below deck equipment and open port implementations on Iridium satellite terminals allow remote attackers to read hard-coded credentials via the web interface. So cool, we're in, we got web interface. What can we do with that? CVE 2014-0326, the terminal upgrade tool in the pilot below deck equipment and open port implementations on Iridium satellite terminals allows remote attackers to execute arbitrary code by uploading new firmware to TCP port 54321. So not only do we have a login that was hard-coded, we also can just upload whatever the hell we want onto it. So and these are from 2014, they're not especially old. So these are Iridium satellite terminals that you can just log into, run arbitrary code, and use that to jump to any other system you want. Like, these are not especially well segregated systems here. On the ship itself, they also use ICS systems. They got diesel pumps, they have cranes, they have motors, things. They do things. They're moving factories. They have crew entertainment systems. So when you work on a ship for 21 days, you have off time, you're going to get bored, you're going to watch a movie or something. And they have systems on board for that. A lot of the movies that they're going to get are going to be on USB sticks that they picked up at some random street vendor in Shanghai. Plug them right into their laptops. They have navigation computers on board, the EDCIS, the Electronic Display and Chart Information Systems. So these are computers with displays. They run code. They're vulnerable. They're plugged into other things so that they can get more data. They're plugged into the nav systems. They're plugged into the piloted systems and so on. The boats will also have like distress systems, so in case anything happens, they have digital selective calling, the maritime distress systems, so man overboard systems, etc. They're all radio systems. Some of them will speak satellite. They're connected to other things so that they can figure it out. They have vessel. The vessel monitoring system is a fishing thing. It lets ships report catches, where they're fishing. There's a radar component to it. And they've got AIS transponders and LRIT. So AIS is for short range anti-collision. It's again, it's a radio protocol. They have LRIT, which again is the post 9/11 vessel monitoring, vessel tracking system. And a lot of these systems are just connected with NMEA, which is basically CAN bus. And again, if you've ever been to any of the car hacking talks or been to the car hacking village, like NMEA, CAN bus are again, they're trivial protocols that if you can connect to them somehow, you can just bang bits down the wire. You can make ships do things, which like you'd think there'd be some kind of security for. So AIS. This is a marine traffic website that you can look at around the Port of Oakland, and AIS allows you to watch where all the ships are. So you can see every ship that's in and out of the Port of Oakland on whatever day this is, sometime in April. And not only that, it allows you to dig down some information. So this is the MOL beacon en route from LAX to Oakland on whatever day that was in April. And if you were looking to track down a ship, AIS is not a bad way to do it. But ships will turn it off if they don't need it, or they would like to move quietly. They do have the option to turn it off. LRIT is not the case. That one is always on. And AIS is such a simple radio protocol. That doesn't do any attestation that this signal is coming from where it's supposed to, that it's trivial to spoof. This was at an event that I went to a couple years ago, where we had a whole bunch of ghost boats spelling out the word pwn, and we actually caused the anti-collision autopilot to steer away from our artificial boat. So we basically moved the boat where we wanted it to, just by inserting fake boats over the radio waves. LRIT is new. LRIT was standardized in 2006. It's an XML-based protocol over the Iridium satellites. Basically, it beacons out 4 times a day, every 6 hours, to the satellites, the position, the date and time, and the ship ID, to an application service provider, and there's a bunch of them. Application service provider reports to the flagging country, so the flagging country knows where all of its flagged boats are at any given time. And this is ostensibly an anti-terrorism thing, but I think they're probably just using that as an excuse, as they do. And the application service providers are free to collect the data however they like, given the standard. And some of them are on the internet. There's about 7 of them that I found on Shodan. Some of them have very interesting names, which I'm not inclined to go to prison to dig up, but I'll give you the Shodan links. CMA, GCM, is a big shipping company. Their LRIT fleet tracking services is just online. It's just an HTTP endpoint. The Vietnamese National Data Center, also online. The Egyptian National Data Center, also online. And this is just things that you can find on Shodan. Also related to LRIT was last year, shout out to XORs, who found that the Sailor 9000 VSATs, the satellite communication things, were just exposing all the LRIT data on an unauthenticated website. And he built a ship tracker for Shodan on it, which no longer works. I'm not sure why. I think he kind of abandoned the project. I'm not sure if he stopped getting the data or if something just changed, but shiptracker.shodan was a thing for a while, and you could just track ships that, maybe they had their AIS turned off and didn't want to be tracked. once the satellite systems, once the system is infiltrated, attacker can view call logs on VSAT phones, upload firmware, modify system settings, or just track the ships. So why might we care about tracking ships? Pirates. There are a lot of escort-only waters. So we're talking about, for instance, off the coast of Somalia. If you want to operate a ship off the coast of Somalia, you are you bring along an escort, a naval escort, and that's because if a pirate comes in and gets on your ship, like you know, and game over, I guess. So on the other side, if you were a pirate and you wanted to steal the best cargo, I mean, what would you probably do? You'd probably go onto CMA or any of the Maersk, any of the other ships, break into their IT systems, find a really juicy manifest, like this one's got Porsches or something. So now you know which ship you're looking for. It's the one that has the nicest manifest. You know, you could probably break into the LRIT system to track the boat, figure out when it's coming close by, when it doesn't have an escort, somewhere that you can get to without an escort. Or maybe you have a piece of malware on a USB stick that you sold them when they stopped in Egypt. What if you wanted to, say, for instance, redirect the ship? You can use AIS to sort of steer it, but that doesn't really work that well. But, you know, you can change around their chart data. Maybe they think that they're going where they're supposed to be, or you've steered them into their escort-only waters without escorts. When the boat's in range, you could attack. But, you know, then they're going to send out a distress signal. What if you take that distress signal and you just put it 100 kilometers away? So the Coast Guard and the Navy is, you know, barreling towards a position which they are no longer at. And, you know, it gives the pirates plenty of time to steal whatever they want. And, you know, steal whatever, sink the ship, do whatever they want. Nation states is sort of, I find it the less interesting threat model because nation states have near infinite funding. They can do whatever they want. If they're willing to start a war over it, they'll start a war over it. But if they want to be surreptitious and not start a war over it, you know, military and commercial vessels operate in the same waters. There's only so many ports around. There's only so many cities around. And, you know, similar to the Fitzgerald and McCain collisions, they can just crash them together. They can lie about the anti-collision data, spoof it, whatever, and cause ships to fall into each other. They might do it, you know, for various reasons, just cause general trading confusion, starve a country with from resources. Maybe it becomes a thing where they start steering ships, you know, slightly away from ports. It costs them extra time and money to get there. Just slowly bleed it out. There's a bunch of things that have reserves that, you know, you need for trade, rare earth metals and what have you. Maybe they disrupt the shipping of those. You know, military ships tend to have some form of electronic war countermeasures, but commercial ships do not. There's nothing stopping electronic warfare on a commercial ship. The Navy has recently started, because of the GPS abnormalities, the Navy started recently bringing back celestial navigation as a thing that they teach in naval school. You know, maybe that is an answer. There's also the corporate sabotage aspect that we might want to worry about. So if you're a mobster or just otherwise a well-funded attacker looking to make some money, maybe you short BP, and then maybe you crash a oil vessel into something, a rock, pour oil everywhere, BP stock price drops, you make a bunch of money. Like, there's a fair number of different reasons why an attacker might go after ships. And what are we going to do about it? Is a much tougher question to answer. Maybe we need to get some kind of intrusion detection systems on board, either on the CAN bus or intrusion detection radio systems or something. I think that the classification societies should probably start focusing a lot on it, having some kind of secure development lifecycle requirements, some kind of certification requirements, just to make sure that these systems don't have bugs such as like the CVEs in the Iridium satellite where they're just hard-coded credentials. Like any ProdSec person or AppSec, whatever you want to call it, worth their salt should trivially have caught that, which leads me to believe that they just don't have any. So yeah, I mean, if you want to go from the other aspect, if you want to hack a boat, make sure you do it in international waters in between your monkey knife fights. And other than that, I don't know. I mean, I'm open to any questions, suggestions. Please talk to me. You can talk to me afterwards. And thank you. I'm going to leave my Twitter handle up there. It's probably the easiest way to reach me if you don't want to talk to me in person for whatever reason, because I smell bad. But thank you.